They believe that the United States is pristine. You know what pristine means? Pure. Pristine innocence. And that the Israelis control everything. They trick everybody. They're behind everything. Everything that happens. If there's a car crash on Ocean Parkway where I live, it's the Zionists.
Where do you think this leaves Trump's base? Do you think Tucker Carlson and the people who have been alongside him in sort of their criticism of Trump, specifically with how he seems to be, allowing Israel to capture what they think is Israel capturing U.S. foreign policy? So people like Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, do you think they sufficiently move Trump's base, or do you think they are also just elites within within the Republican Party?
Judging by the polls, Trump's base has remained firm. It's a kind of cult, you can say, and a cult leader can do no wrong. We know that. I was a Maoist in my youth, a follower of Chairman Mao, and Chairman Mao could do no wrong. It's a cult. But I do believe, and I have to be careful about my language here because I don't want to be misunderstood. I do believe a problem is arising. You remember I told you a few moments ago, I said to you a few moments ago that there was an informational void which the Israelis filled. And there is a kind of political void in the United States. There are some exceptions like Zohar Mamdani's victory in New York. And the fact that Bernie Sanders can still bring out a crowd wherever he travels when he's attacking the Republican Trump administration. But in general, if you look, somebody sent me a diagram yesterday. It was a circle graph indicating who are the biggest podcasters now in the United States. The biggest was the biggest influencers. The biggest was Elon Musk. Then there were people like Jackson Hinkle. It's clear the left has no voice in the U.S. It's none. It doesn't have, at least on the social media, it has no real presence. The only person who ranked at all was Mehdi Hassan. And Mehdi Hassan is just an opportunist. Occasionally he'll say things that sound leftist, and then it's just Democratic Party line. He's not a voice of the left. I don't even think he would call himself a person of the left. Now, the biggest institutional beneficiary of the debacle in Iran are going to be Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, all of whom said that this was going to be a disaster. Credit given where credit due. I have no problem with that. Tucker Carlson, not only when the war began, the aggression began, not only when the aggression began, but already a month before, he apparently, judging from his what he said, he had visited the White House several times on several occasions and had strongly counseled against the war. And he said it would be a disaster. He was right. Okay? And as you know the expression, to the victor go the spoils. His stock is now going to go through the ceiling. He's going to become a prophet. P-H-E-T, not F-I-T. He's going to become a prophet now, though he's going to profit F-I-T handsomely, for sure, from this. And I think that's a problem. Now, I don't want to question his religious convictions. I have no idea. I have to admit, and I'll get killed by people on the left for saying it, but what Tucker Carlson tweeted to Trump, that was kind of touching. It was. A person in power who actually cares about human life. Very unusual. So, I will credit that because I don't know whether to doubt his religious convictions or not. I don't know him. I spoke to him once, on the phone for a while. Otherwise, I only know him via the web. However, giving credit where credit is due, this notion that this was an Israeli war, that the U.S. had no stake in it, that somehow the Israelis convinced Trump that Iran was our enemy. No, that went back about 30 years. Iran was our enemy. Um, and if you listen to Tucker Carlson, he went one step further. He said Israel dragged the U.S. into the war because it wanted the U.S. to be defeated. It wanted to undermine the U.S. national security, uh, U.S. military prowess, because Israel wanted to form an alliance with India. Now, honestly, I haven't a clue where that comes from. I really don't. And unfortunately, these ideas are now going to gain currency because when you have a prophet, P H E T, it's normal not normal, it's typical, I won't say normal, it's typical not to disaggregate their ideas like, okay, that was right. He was right about Iran. He was right about it. He was right about this too, and he was right about that too. But that's crazy. No, most people, it's a package. And, you listen to these people, they're absolutely convinced that the Israelis killed John F. Kennedy. Yes, they all believe that. Next, you're going to be hearing that they assassinated Abraham Lincoln, that they caused the Civil War. No, I'm serious. You're laughing, but you have to see it. If you don't mind me saying so, you have to see it from my my age and my perspective coming of age. I was alive during the Kennedy assassination. I remember it very well. I was in fifth grade. I remember the teacher announcing it with a tear in her eyes. Why do I mention this? Not to people, for your listeners to marvel at how old I am. No, I didn't know Abraham Lincoln, but I do remember JFK. I mention it for the following reason. From the day of Kennedy's assassination, everybody was fascinated by the question, who did it? Who did it? And there was this deluge, avalanche uh, of books written on the subject, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. The most famous was by a guy named Mark Lane. It was called Rush to Judgment. There was one by Harold Weisberg. Why do I know it? I was curious. I read all the books. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Everybody was fascinated by that question because it seems so improbable that this one lone gunman, rather drab looking Lee Harvey Oswald, had carried out this event of what was made out to be, it wasn't, but it was made out to be, of um, world historical significance, JFK's assassination. In fact, it was pretty much meaningless. Kennedy was in office for 3 years. Nobody can mention anything he did except for the fact that he brought the world to the brink of nuclear annihilation. It was pretty close with Cuba and Russia in 1963. Other than that, there's nothing here, his record. But it was manufactured, this myth of what came to be called, your listeners will have no idea, but it was called the myth of Camelot. Um, in any event, if you read those books, hundreds, maybe more than hundreds, nobody ever mentioned Israel. They mentioned organized crime. They mentioned Castro. They mentioned Russia. They mentioned, various theories. Israel. You know what Israel was in 1963? Israel was a backwater. It had the GNP or the GDP, however you calculate it, of an African country. It was very poor. It was very simple. It wasn't the subject of any conversation, least of all among American Jews. Israel? Kennedy? But that's what these people believe now. They believe that the United States is pristine. You know what pristine means? Pure. Pristine innocence. And that the Israelis control everything. They trick everybody. They're behind everything. Everything that happens. If there's a car crash on Ocean Parkway where I live, it's the Zionists. You know, it's true. I get the emails from perfectly sane people who are very adamant that Israel is behind everything. And now that voice, because they were right on Iran, is going to be vastly amplified. And that's a problem. It's a problem. It's going to be a very big problem for Jews, by the way. It's going to be a very big problem for Jews. Uh, and there is, the Jews have historically always feared this charge of what's called dual loyalty. You know what dual
Yep.
loyalty means? It means that Jews are more loyal to other Jews than they are to their own country. The dual loyalty charge. And it has a very long pedigree, uh, the claim of dual loyalty. And now, when you hear these commentators, the question that constantly comes up is, who are they loyal to? Are they loyal to their country, or are they loyal to another state? And if now it's being said that other state wanted to weaken the U.S., that's what Tucker Carlson says, then those people are guilty of treason. It's beyond dual loyalty. It's treason. You are aiding and abetting a foreign state to undermine the national security of your own country. That's treason. So it's going to be a rough ride now. The famous line by Betty Davis in All About Eve: fasten your seat belts. It's going to be a rough ride, a rough night. Yeah, there will be a problem for Jews. I'm not happy about that because I believe it's factually incorrect, a lot of the assumptions there. But in part, you have reaped what you have sown. You're going to reap the whirlwind now, and that's very regrettable, I believe. So there's going to be problems arising. Um, Unfortunately, if you listen to I don't listen to the podcast, but I listened enough. The notion that it was what happened in Iran was, quote, it was Israel's war, Israel's doing. Everybody was saying it across the spectrum. People, I don't think he's particularly bright, but the left doesn't have many bright lights anymore. And the era of the great Noam Chomsky has passed, and now sub mediocres are the left, with some exceptions, very few. But you hear people like Max Blumenthal, even this guy Daniel Levy, who was just a left liberal, Israeli. They're all saying it was Israel. Yeah, Israel tipped the balance, but that the U.S. had no interest. The U.S. that had Iran in its crosshairs since 1979. The U.S. that approved Saddam Hussein's use of uh, poison in its war against Iran, the U.S. which concealed um, Saddam Hussein's use of poison gas, concealed it, had no interest. No, no, it's way off.